Why is vulnerability management so darn slow?
Because it's a little bit harder than you think, right? And because it's not completely in your control.
We have close to 100,000 assets, and we were trying to do this on spreadsheets. So as you can imagine, the process just can't scale.
You want to do things like take off targets of opportunity, people who are coming after me because I have this vulnerability. Things like, how prevalent is this vulnerability across the world? You got to think of it from a threat model perspective. Who is it that's coming after me because of me? And what are their methods?
I want to start this first one with Sean Bowen, who's the CISO over at Restaurant Brands International. Sean says, I personally think that vulnerability management is two parts: configuration vulnerability and patch management. Do you see it the same way? And if so, how do you manage the two different components?
I would agree, because both, if not done well, can leave you vulnerable or exposed. If you have a strong focus on change management and you have good baseline standards, you're less likely to end up with configuration issues.
We said, all right, who's good at and not good at remediation? And really, we looked at 4 key kind of performance metrics around remediation. And one of the things that actually shined through is those that had high velocity or were able to remediate a bunch of vulnerabilities quickly had automated patch management. Go figure.
The bad news is that the bad guys are getting better and faster at developing exploits. So you will have the occasional situation where you really need to get a specific patch out really fast in a hurry. And that's where the automated systems really come into play.
Got a good question that came in from Dustin Sachs. What is the most effective way you have found to get business units to patch and maintain their systems when it is not their primary concern?
You can't be the boy who cried wolf previously, right? I can have come to you with every single vulnerability over the last year and say, hey, you got to fix this, and you got to fix this, and you got to fix this, because eventually they're like, yeah, but nothing's happening.
I think this is a broader conversation about making sure business leaders and executives understand cyber risk. You have all of these stories of ransomware. So you have more than enough examples where you can have a conversation.
We're ready to play our game, Department of Yes. Fixed vulnerabilities using American Idol's voting system. Why is this an idea you want to implement?
Because it's the wisdom of the crowd. There's a lot of things going on it that it makes the news. Suddenly I get a lot of pressure from my boss saying, hey, what are we doing about this? I read this article on this. This is a fantastic idea because you get as many people involved in vulnerability management as possible.
Don't scan, then you won't have any vulnerabilities.
If you are not spending your time scanning, you can move straight away to deployment.
Mandate that the vendor auto-install all new patches.
If we could just have all of the vendors do auto updates, and in cases where restart is necessary, auto restart as well, we would probably eliminate 90% or more of vulnerabilities out there.
I got one question here from Dustin Sachs. How proactive should an organization be? How do you get leadership buy-in for a proactive patch management program?
And everybody starts somewhere, and your goal is to get better. They move from the old school way of counting vulnerabilities. They want to move to this risk-based approach. They start with efficiency. And then over time, as they mature, they start to shift towards coverage, because overall, they want to just have a better, cleaner state across their entire environment.
I would rather frame it in terms of using this approach has allowed us to drastically improve our risk posture. So there is a drastic reduction you see immediately in terms of managing your risk.
This is a question that comes in from Fani Srinivasan. Does it make sense to have a VAPT, a vulnerability assessment penetration testing function, as a completely separate business unit rather than under information security?
It's important to focus on the outcome. You need to have competent folks who know, who are really deep and have the expertise, approach it in the right manner, and the results are presented and acted upon, and you're achieving that. The structure of it doesn't matter.
Ultimately, what you're doing is making a decision about which risks to accept, which ones to reduce, and which ones to eliminate. So it's really kind of a team thing. Really, what you want to do is get to that acceptable risk level. I don't think a vulnerability management team should be the decision point or the decision owner, but they should absolutely be an advisor as part of that.
I think most business leaders will now understand it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. It's really about managing the risk and saying, look, we're going to do these 15 things, one of them being vulnerability management to reduce the surface area, to reduce the likelihood. But something is going to happen.
You got to stop counting vulnerabilities and start quantifying risk.
I think sometimes we as security folks strive to be perfect, to get to 100%. At some point, you're going to hit the diminishing returns. And it's very important to prioritize. Don't burn yourself trying to get to 100%.